All right, Casey Gray here, back with another episode of the Conscious Builder Show. And we're here with Tim Priddle of The Wood Source. And luckily for me, this is very close to where I live because I intentionally stay out of this so I don't spend too much money. But being a carpenter, this is like our playground, right? And luckily for us, Tim was nice enough to say yes to this interview. So we want to get to know Tim a little bit, and then he'll give us a little tour. But first, I really want to start because we're here in the Wood Source, but it started off as Adams and Kennedy. And my little bit of knowledge about that started in '53. I believe, I forget the first name, Mr. Adams, but he had purchased it from his brother.
Yeah, John Adams.
John Adams. And then eventually, what ended up happening is you ended up purchasing it with your brother.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in how that part came along. It's going to be 20 years. I think,
this November, yeah. Casey, thank you for inviting me on. Happy to tell you a little bit about the Wood Source. So the Wood Source began as a company called Adams and Kennedy Lumber. It started off in Westboro as a little hobby shop for woodworkers. In the early 70s, it moved out to Manotick, about 3 or 4 kilometers west of where we are right now. And they were there until 1986. In 1986, they moved to our current location. Our current location used to be on the main CP train line into Ottawa, and it used to be a wholesale hardwood lumber company called Maritime Lumber. Maritime Lumber sold to the Adams brothers, Art and Rick Adams, who were running Adams and Kennedy in the 1980s. They moved it here in '98 and started a little remanufacturing operation out of one of our buildings we'll see a little bit later on the tour. In 1998, my brother Phil and I bought the business. We were custom home builder and renovators in Ottawa. I started the business when I was in high school and did infill projects and renovations in the Glebe and Ottawa South and Westboro. And saw this opportunity, met with the Adams brothers, and ended up buying it from them in 1998. And since then, we've changed a lot of what we do, and we've been very fortunate and blessed with great customers, and the business has grown.
Yeah, it must have been quite the leap to go from what you're doing into somewhat of a completely different business.
Completely different business. So it was financially more onerous, a little bit scary. One of the nice things about it, I can work here for 12 hours and go home, and at 7 o'clock at night I'm not getting calls about changing the paint color in a room or wanting to move a post in a house, something you're very familiar with. So there were positives and benefits. I still miss the wonder and amazement of taking a empty lot and building an infill house. I still stay very much in touch with builders and architects, and really enjoy being engaged with people's projects.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of your wood is going into those projects too. You're manufacturing here as well, right? Are you doing like custom work for some of those renovations or custom homes?
Yeah, a good portion of our business is for high-end renovators and custom home builders. And you'll see again on our tour that we do a lot of custom moldings. We can reproduce any molding that people want. And that's very handy when you're doing heritage restoration work. We do a lot of restoration work with federal government buildings, Ivy League schools. We've done a lot with Harvard and Yale and Cornell universities and so on. So we've got a bit of a niche market where we can reproduce almost anything. We make a lot of sidings, floorings, dimensional lumber for the millwork industry.
And so you're shipping across North America?
Yeah, so we have a business that is spread out. The core of it's still in the Ottawa area, but we ship a lot into Montreal, Toronto, and then into the States. 3 areas in particular: Texas, Colorado, a little bit in California, and then New York, Connecticut area.
Wow, that's great. Backtrack a little bit. I'm curious about how it works working with your brother, because you always hear like family and business doesn't always mix, right? And you always hear horror stories about that. I do work with one of my brothers, and we've been working together for the last year. It's been going great, and I think we see each other's strengths. So how has that whole dynamic worked for you, and how have you made it last so long?
Casey, it's a good question, and when we bought this business, we bought it from 2 brothers that weren't getting along, and that's the reason we bought the business. And so you can imagine my mother, when I told her that we were buying a business from 2 fighting brothers and Phil and I were going to buy it from them, she was a bit nervous. No, we have a great relationship. We have different tasks. We bring different personalities to the business, and it works well. In fact, I can't imagine being in business with anyone else but my brother. So I think it works out well. We have to be conscious about areas of conflict and make sure that we manage that, communicate well, all those basics that are fundamental for any partnership.
That's great to hear. I bet it's probably a compliment for your mother and father, actually, too, right? The fact that you get along so well and
yes, definitely.
to work together.
Definitely, it's hats off to my parents for having raised us in a way that allows us to manage that.
Where did the whole entrepreneurial side of things come from for you? Because that's a whole different thing, right? There's one thing to really be involved in construction. You know, I'm a carpenter by trade, but when I started my business, I'm still fixing a lot of the mistakes I've made in business, right? So it definitely takes a certain personality, I think, to overcome a lot of the stuff that comes with entrepreneurship.
I've always enjoyed developing and running businesses, and there's a few others that we do related to the wood source that we could talk about another day. But growing up, I always had a niche for making money, starting with lemonade stands when I was a kid. I loved building lemonade stands. I remember building an insulated cooler and all that. Early on, when I was in high school, I rented some space from Minto at Bank and Fifth Avenue and used to sell Christmas trees in December and bedding plants in the spring, and did very well by that, and realized that if you work hard, if you do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, for the amount of money you say you're going to do it, your business will thrive. So the core fundamentals of running a business are simple: and do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, for the amount you say, and your business will thrive.
That's great. So I really want to see what you have going on in terms of the operations around here. So I think we should, from here, let's go on a little tour, and you can show us around the 10 acres or so?
12 acres. We'll take you around and introduce you to the different buildings, machines, and people we have here.
That's great.
Task.
You were pointing earlier that this would be like the master builder who's doing this, but then you pointed out that this post over here would probably be the apprentice that would learn.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the swing beam, it's a beam that's tapered from 24 inches at the center down to 18 inches.